All right. So just a follow up to Wednesday. All right. Hopefully, I can admit everybody in as they come in. If there's anybody saying that they can't get in, just let me know. So follow up from Wednesday's lecture, right? Right. We saw pretty much a very impulsive move, although it could have been a correction in terms of swing structure, but we know our overall structure is still bullish. Right, and the reason why, like I keep saying that I'm not convinced, right, is every single pullback we've seen has been very minor, to say the least, right? As we've said before, right, this correction, very, very small. This correction took a couple months, right? Took like 3 or 4 months, but it was still an overall small correction, right? So from here, right, from the high, this correction is already pretty much the length of this correction. So there's a chance that this can either continue or there's a chance that this can, straight up melt from here, right? I see both scenarios going. So for the most part, I'm trying to cover myself on both ends, right? Like as we said before, right, on Wednesday, this was our momentum shift, right? And we caught the reaction of the higher low, right, which then led to a break of structure, which led to an overall break of structure from an intraday basis here. So that was pretty much the commencement or the start of our swing pullback in terms of, well, in the context of, our lows being taken, continuation lower, right? So that intraday move was the correction. The beginning of the correction, right? If that's even a correction, right? There's always a possibility that we can always see this high be broken substantially. We have no reaction from potential SC or even inefficiency, and this just flies, right? So I'm prepared for both, right? I actually took an entry, I believe it was Wednesday. And that was because I was seeing this entire range start to play out here. Right, so when I was looking at this, right, automatically, I noticed these two highs, right, which could have been essentially a buying climax secondary test, right, followed by an upthrust, right, buying climax, automatic rally, secondary test, upthrust, and there was a UTAD here. So once we were in the UTAD, I was actually looking for any excuse to sell off here. Right, and so as I'm looking at price action here, right, approaching New York Open, which was here, right, we see structural points continuation, right, we had our pullback here, right, this is considered a micro break of structure, right, but you see those everywhere, right, in order for a scalping pullback to occur, you need to see a micro structure break in order to get that pullback to then continue higher, right, so from here, I now saw this, right, this is now showing me an unwillingness to continue higher, right, and not only that, but from the microstructure, right, that we broke here, right, this is now a liquidity grab here. So then I saw the reaction and my entry was at the inefficiency fill here. Right, so when we're looking at M1, when I was looking at M1, right, there's two scenarios, right, because we saw this liquidity grab here, right, and it came right back down. I consider this to be a 90% retracement of this microstructure. So now I'm just looking for that excuse to sell, right? So I knew that if we were to reach this inefficiency, we're either going to do the reaction, mitigation, the reaction, and then reach for potentially this inefficiency here, right? So I knew there was two scenarios. So my stop was just above that potential inefficiency failure, right? And then you add spread, consider spread, but luckily from there, right, the final reaction was just a liquidity grab of my entry, right? So from there, I'm now targeting right our previous intraday low, which is already right 16 to 1, right? And as soon as that happened, you take partials, right? Because from here, honestly, this could continue, and as you can see, it came back into this 15-minute wick. So now, right, because I'm still in a bullish bias, I'm gonna look for an excuse to buy, right? So right, I saw this on the same time frame, which was the 15-minute inefficiency fill here, right? So we had this right around 12 a.m. my time, yeah, right before London, right? And that was a pretty strong reaction, right? So this is showing momentum, right? Hence why this final correction was very, very small. I mean, very, very corrective, I'm sorry. So as I'm looking through my time frames here, right, I'm now focused on this range because, and let me delete this stuff for you guys. Right, so as I'm looking here, right, from terms of scalping structure here, right, we see pretty much a small range and then an impulse to the downside, and then we see that structure break here, right, with a ton of momentum. So my range now that I'm trying to play in is in between that low and that high, right? So as I'm looking through my time frames, right, POI number 1, right, potential inefficiency fill there, potential SC here, right? But that open, right, it's not really, that attractive to me because, right, there wasn't a strong impulsive move. I would have loved to see an engulfing here. But still, even though that open still matches that M4 inefficiency fill. But then I saw this 2-minute SC and I actually referenced the 50% here. Right, so I'm going to delete this, which was the original 15-minute inefficiency fill. And all I did from here, right, was look for that second mitigation play, right, which is here, the reaction. Right, we go to M1 in that same spot. So I referenced the wick here. And my entry was right after this indecision. Pretty much indecision candle, because that's showing me that we probably might see higher here. So I took it off that closure. 3 pip stop, essentially a little bit above. And that target hasn't been met yet, right? That target is up here, right? But I've essentially covered myself on both sides, right? Because this is still floating here, but I've also covered myself on this side, right? So there's a chance that, my entry can be taken here and this can just continue lower, or this can continue higher and it takes out this Friday's liquidity, right? Which was formed right at the beginning of New York. So if that's the case, if you come right back up there, right, I'm already covered with a 20-to-1 here. Whereas I'm already in a 20-to-1 and this can continue for 30, 40-to-1, right? So I've covered myself on both sides. And from there, I'm really just being patient and seeing if either my instinct feeling is going to happen, or if this is just, if I'm wrong and this actually is a distribution and this just falls, right? So we'll see. I'm pretty, intrigued to see what happens from here, right? Because honestly, if we break this low, then I see us easily taking out this low. So I'm just waiting to see which reaction happens and in which direction it goes, right? And then as for EG, right, this is still, this is playing right, pretty much as according to plan for the most part, right? Now the one thing that's worrying me here, right, is the fact that, right, this could be impulse correction, right? But as I'm going to my daily time frame, right, the reference point, there's two very key reference points that I consider to be obstacles into my bearish bias, and that is obviously this, which was already tapped, the 50% inefficiency of the daily, but that gave a reaction, but that's giving no follow through, right? Hence why, and I'm saying that because the bearish daily closures are pretty much engulfing the next or the previous. So based off how structure is also moving here, right, from an intraday basis, right, I'm looking at the structural points, right? This is that final structural point that came back to create this low. So this is now the next lower high, and this is now even a lower high based off of that. And the reason why I'm considering this not a 90% retracement is because, first of all, they had this massive momentum here, right, which essentially created equal lows, and all this correction was just another mitigation move here to somewhere there, and created a new lower low from an intraday basis. But now I'm really intrigued to see if we're going to take out this 50% daily, right? And then from there, the only obstacle that I see is the inefficiency fill, because there could always be a reaction that could aim to take out those equal highs. So I'm waiting, right? I'm waiting to see what happens when we reach this this pretty much this daily low and go from there, right? Because I'm prepared to hedge myself in the case that these equal highs are taken, right? Because if these equal highs are taken with momentum, right, then all this really is a bull flag. So not much going on, just same old continuations on continuations. That's all it is. Right, but this one's an intriguing one too, right? This is the one that I said I would talk about, right? And the reason why I'm saying liquidity grab is look at this weekly, right? First of all, right, this was this flash crash, or was this when Corona? Okay, this is Corona started. Okay, so that was the Corona reaction, right? So we have one large wick to play off of, because I consider this to be one whole liquidity grab. So now I'm trying to play anything inside of this range for the potential corrective move that can just fly, right? So even looking at the daily here, right, the new range is now inside this wick, right? And we've actually already tapped that, right? And we gave a correction, right, just to give another lower low. But I don't consider this to be a lower low, because all this did was test that previous low, and it came right back up and it gave a reaction. So whenever I see things like that, right, it inclines me to think that the narrative has shifted, right? And that starts off by this intraday break of structure here, right? All this is now is a pullback, and then that's the structure shift there, right? So I don't consider this, I don't see this as distribution, right? Because let me ask you guys something. Where do we see distribution occur? I'm sorry? But where do you see distribution happening? Exactly, at the top of a range, right? And where are we in this range? Right? The only way I'll play a schematic is if it fits narrative. And the narrative that I'm seeing here is the liquidity grab, intraday break of structure shift. So now all this is doing to me is recovering, right? Yes, this is a very impulsive move, right? But if we were to see this high break, then that'll fly, right? And I really don't like how that daily closed there, right? Because that daily looks like, for one, it filled the inefficiency here, and there's potentially a mitigation move, or was it? Okay, so there's inefficiency here, right? There's always a chance we can come back to 50%. That's one point of interest, right? But I'm trying to follow order flow here. So I see this last candle that created this intraday higher high, right? I see the potential mitigation here. Hold on. Okay, never mind. Right, so from there, and I'll see this candle, right, that created that follow up intraday high, right, and that's when we saw this range start. So notice that this wick here didn't reach the candle here, so that means that there's something here, right? And I'm not going to actually go deep into that. I'll let you guys do that, right? But all I'm doing is starting a narrative, right? Pretty much from that candle there, right? And there's probably something in these candles, right? See, there's inefficiency fill there, and that's where it came to. All right, so yeah, never mind. Guess I did your homework for you. All right, inefficiency fill. Here. And that's what caused this reaction. So me personally, I would have loved to see this occur, right? Because as I'm looking at microstructure, right, this entire move here is an intraday bearish move, right? But as a microstructure, these are all structural points, right? Is that making sense? Do you guys see why I'm considering that microstructure points? Do you guys see why I'm doing that? Or do you guys understand that that's what I'm saying? See the chat. Right, so you're seeing this micro break of structure here, right, with heavy momentum. Right, now there's an SC here. I would have loved to take this off of this, personally. Would have loved to take this because it's going against, right, a potential break of structure that people that look at intraday timeframes would see. Right, because that would now be floating, right, over a 9-to-1. Right, and the possibility of this even taking out this high, I think it's very probable, right? Because usually you just see one fat drop. It's usually not sustainable because not only is it leaving a ton of inefficiency, right? But if there's no sense, if you don't make sense out of that bias, right, then the continuation play doesn't make sense either. So I'm anticipating to see this inefficiency be filled if, right, we don't react from that structure move, right? But me personally, I would have loved to be in that buy there. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I don't really have much else to talk about, right? Even though this, keep in mind though, this is still bearish structure, right? But this is the sign of optimism that I'm pretty much worried about or concerned about. But yeah, other than that, do you guys have any questions? I just said that bearish structure is intact, but this is alarming. Right, so most of the time you want to see structure create substantial lower lows and lower highs, right? But in order to catch trend shifts, right, you usually start to see the momentum shorten, right? And that's how you see it start. Yep, that's all it is. Yeah, effort. Taking too much effort to come lower, hence why the liquidity is occurring. I mean, the liquidity is just taken, and we get a reaction to the upside. Yeah, good observation. Price is struggling to come up. Yep. That could also be the bias for your selling bias, right? This could be struggling to continue higher, right? Structure break. Continuation, right? So it's both. You can see it both ways, right? So when you see it both ways, cover yourself both ways. Right, but just keep in mind, UJ's not my pair. So for all I know, you guys know this pair better than I do. Right, my focus is on EU, because if we really do get this upside move, crazy. Yeah, crazy. Right, even if we come back to the inefficiency, still crazy. Right, or even if we do continue here and we take out these lows, right? This is why I'm covering myself on both sides. Right, because it's the same scenario as UJ, right? I see both scenarios coming out, so I'm going to cover myself on both sides. Just common sense. But yeah, other than that, do you guys have any questions? All right, cool. Then I guess we can end it off here. I need to finish up one journal that I finished up last week, and then I'll get to the ones from this week. But other than that, can you see it dropping after the fill? No, who knows? Hey, and Abdelber, you're new, so please, please, please do not be like a lot of newcomers. Read what's in the process tab here. Please read this, right? As you're new, please read this. You're gonna save us both a lot of time and energy. But yeah, other than that, I guess we can just end it off here. So